My name is Huynh410FA16, and I'll be showing you a marketing simulation for the Managing Segments and Customers by Harvard Business Publishing. Here, this is the dashboard overview of 2015, where you're basically looking at the overview of what you've done in your company over the last quarter. At the top here, we have the marketing share between your Segment A, Segment B, Segment C, Segment D, and Segment E. Segment E is mostly for your small customers, so we'll not say Segment E. Here we have a chart that tells you large customers and small customers, where the large customer is in color orange and small customers color blue. Here it will constantly compare you and your competitors, which you are focusing more on power to size ratio and your competitor at thermal resistance. Up here, you can see your segment shares, your quarterly revenue, and your unit sales, where you're constantly being compared to competitors along with your profit margin, your average prices, and your spending on features. Next, we have net prices, where you're comparing between your segments, how you and your competitors do, and prices. Notice how the darker blue, which is your company, compares to the lighter blue, which is your competitors. The darker color will always be higher, considering that my product is always slightly more expensive than my competitors because I constantly keep it slightly higher since the quality is also slightly better. Here we have the customer purchases by segments, except this time we are separated between large customers and small customers, along with our segments A through D. This time I'm not showing segment E. Since segment E is already up here. Notice how large customers have a larger incline compared to the smaller customers, because most of my focus was in the larger customer. Since I mostly focus 80% of my time larger customers, the incline is more emphasized than my smaller customers. Same thing goes with segment A. However, segment A is not price sensitive. So regardless how much I price my product, segment A will constantly buy as long as the quality of the product for power to size ratio is good. Segment B I did not touch, so there's a stable line at a very low rate for segment B. Segment C I did focus a little bit of time, and thus shows in my graph where it's slightly higher. Segment D is price sensitive, so as long as I give them a good discount and a good price, they'll slowly start to buy my product. Here we're viewing in the graphs, but you can also view this in data, where it shows you in data form from segment A, B, C, and D from large customers to large customer over the years of 2012-2015. Unit sales to existing and new customers mostly shows your large customer and small customers, where over here is your large customer, the darker orange is your existing customer, and your lighter orange, almost salmon color, is your new customers. Notice how again I focus more on larger customers compared to smaller customers, because I felt that was where my focus needed to be, where over here in the small customers, the darker blue represents the existing customer and the lighter blue represents new customers. Again, I focus about 80% of my time over with the large customer, and only about a small sliver, about 10%, for the smaller customers. The income statement tab is one of the most important part of the simulation. Over here you have the revenue and net income, where both of them are on an incline. That's really good, considering if it's on an incline, that means you're making money, which is really good for your company since that's what your goal is for the simulation. The income also shows you the revenue for large customers and small customers, your cost of goods sold, expenses, operating expenses, net income, and cumulative profit, where your goal was to reach 8 million. Currently you're viewing in volume, but you can also look at dollars per unit. You can also look at the data as percent of total revenue between the quarters that you previously worked on, and also the gross margin detail between segment A through E. And again, it's showing you between quarters. It basically shows you the last 3 quarters that you were working on. The market research tab shows how much you invested in your market research. With my market research, you can see in this graph that my MM, which is my company, moves farther to the right over the 4 years, while my company's competitor moves upward. This is a really good sign considering that down here on this axis is the power to size ratio, and on this axis is the thermal. The thermal is for my competitor, so if my MM were to go up, that means I'm focusing more against my competitor, but since I'm moving more towards the right, I'm more focusing on my company itself. Over here it shows you the colors for your segments, where yellow is A, blue is B, green is C, and this magenta maroon is D. Currently, we're looking at power to size ratio compared to thermal resistance with larger customers. You can also see power to size ratio to price. And again, this is down here, it's going to show you how it moves throughout the years. And then you can also see thermal resistance to price. You can also switch over to the small customers with this button. Same tabs over here, comparing the two products with price. And then also over here, you can view everything in data form, whereas power to size ratio, thermal with desired and actual prices. Here we have the product performance compared from power to size ratio to thermal resistance. Again, we're using a darker blue to represent my company, MM, and a lighter blue represents the competitor for thermal resistance. Notice how there's an incline over here for power to size, but no incline for thermal, since most of the money that I was putting into products was for power to size, since my company's main focus and emphasis was for that. Thermal, however, I did not touch, and then later on throughout the quarter, reduced the money for investing in thermal resistance. The customer satisfaction tab is an extremely important part of the simulation. Basically tells you how your segment is feeling about how your company is doing in their product. Segment A, as you can see, along with C and E. Segment A, C, and E are very satisfied in what I'm doing, along with segment D, who is price sensitive, is satisfied, and segment B, which is my competitors, is dissatisfied. You can always look at this little tab right here to tell you how your company is doing. Segment A, very satisfied, loving what I'm doing and all the quality of the product. However, segment B, if we click on this tab, will say such thing as their thermal resistant product is malfunctioning because there wasn't much money going into creating a better quality product for segment B. But overall, the other segments overshadow segment B, but in the future I will focus more on segment B next time. Then we have the Salesforce report. This mostly shows the quality of sales. Notice there is an excellent part for segment A because there's much emphasis on it. Not so much on segment B, but it is fair. And then segment C and D is at good. This is a pretty good chart for what I have going, especially for reaching over 8 million for the cumulative profit. Currently we're viewing in graphs, but we can also view this in data. This will show you in data form between your segment A, B, C, and D where they're still color-coded. Lastly, there is a news tab right at the end near the side where it basically tells you what happened last quarter. It lets you know if an existing customer has increased, if a new customer has increased or decreased, and how distributors are attempting for profit margin. After you're done analyzing all these tabs, you can just click decide and see what you want to change, want to keep the same, try to stabilize for your decision. You can always go back to the overview tab to see what has gone up, what has gone down, if the segment share is as high as you want it or quarterly revenue is as high as you want it. You can always check your profit margin, see if your graph has stabilized. If it hasn't, you can always change that. But you are given 4 years to do this, so there's always room for change. Overall, I really liked the simulation. There was a lot going on. The simulation was very professional, very organized, and I hope to work with another simulation by Harvard Business again sometime soon.